Hey, I think we're live. Are we live?
No.
Yes, we are. Yes. I think I see it counting down. No? It says 19 second. No, 12.
Um,
I'm pretty sure we're live. So anyone that's
1 second.
watching, technology has not been our friend lately. It's definitely not my friend. I think that once we are in public again, when I say in public, socializing on a normal level, doing our regular jobs the way we're supposed to do it, that technology and I may have to take a break, like a full-time break. It's not been my friend lately. So I think I see that we're live. Karen, are you seeing it?
We're seeing it, but it's Facebook dropped us off, so we're just fixing that really quickly.
Awesome. Thank you. So for those that might be hanging out there, can you tell if we're on? We want to drop off and go back on? Start over?
No, we're good. We're good. Hang on. It's gonna work. I think that live that you saw was our YouTube channel, which is great that our YouTube is still going good. And we are live. Hey everybody, it's Karen Butler with Shoot Like a Girl. We're so excited to see you all and cannot wait for today. So we're gonna let some people come in, and I'm just not.
Is it a technology challenge?
This is crazy day, honestly. I'm so sick of technology. I can't even tell you what about that. So
I'm watching the page right now to see.
Here we go.
See it. There, are we on to see if we pop up?
We are on. We've got one person, two people. Here they come. Yeah, I'm sure. So Kim, we had the most people say that they're going to watch this because they're so excited to get to talk to you. So everybody, welcome very, very much. We are so excited today because we have a six-time Olympian with us today. And really, it is so amazing. I'm a little nervous and we had technical difficulties, so sorry that we're starting a little bit late. But I will tell you, I'm very nervous and very excited because some of you asked us to talk about skeet and trap. And as much as I would love to tell you, hey, I can do that, no. No, I'm maybe going to learn some tips here today, but I will wear my husband's arm out throwing clays for me and the ground breaks him. But so I'm like, you know what? Our friends at Beretta know somebody. So I called Beretta, and sure enough, Beretta turned around, and look at what they've done is they hooked me up with Kim, and she said, of course I'll do it. And so we have Kim here to talk today. Before we get going, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Krista to do a little admin note. And then Kim, we're going to get started, and we got a lot of questions to ask you today. And thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. And yeah, bring it on, ladies. Let's see what you got.
Awesome.
Hey. Challenge accepted.
Just as a reminder, if you haven't watched the live for Ladies Night last week, which is the Name the Puppy, please go either name or vote for a name that someone listed. We're going to give that, make that a winner announcement here in the next day or two. And then on Monday, we had a great conversation about conservation with Jessica Fisher. And for the like, comment, and share, we are giving away an RMEF, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation sweatshirt. And that winner is Donna Shriver-Zook. So Donna, I'll send you a message and get your mailing address, and we'll get that out to you. Just as a reminder, a lot of our partners are not in their offices, so some of those winnings will be a little delayed, but I promise that they're coming. It's just, we're living in this new time right now. It's Wednesday, and we have an awesome, awesome guest, Kim Rhode. So Karen mentioned it, right? 6-time Olympian. I did my fan crush thing, and I started going out watching YouTube videos and doing a bunch of research, and I could almost not go to sleep last night. I was super pumped and excited, and I'm so glad that you're here to join us, Kim. So thank you.
No, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. I know when Beretta reached out to me and said, hey, would you want to do this? I was like, for sure. It sounds awesome. And
Karen,
of course, we have plenty of time too, because we're stuck here in our houses here in LA. So yeah, no problem.
We are stuck in our homes as well, pretty much across the country. Everyone's kind of at a different level. I've talked to a few people up in Virginia, Maryland area today, They're a little more severe in their shelter in place than Georgia, but we're still all at home. So yes, and thank you to our partners, Beretta, for making the connection. You can't really tell, but Karen and I both have on our Beretta
Yep.
oh
Vest.
shotgun vest
Nice.
today.
Yeah.
I've got the Beretta shirt,
There you
actually.
go.
Yeah.
Woo!
It's got
So
the
you
back.
Oh, let me see.
Oh
Beretta
yeah.
team. Love it. Love it. So this shotgun vest that we are wearing is what our giveaway will be for today's live. So like, comment, and share to be eligible to win that giveaway.
So Kim, I gotta say, you at least earned your shirt. We just bought ours.
Yeah. We didn't earn ours.
I don't know. It's been a lot of practice and blood, sweat, and tears out there to get to this point. So I don't know. I mean, buying it kind of sounds pretty good too, you know?
Yeah.
So Kim, that actually leads me to my first question. And Karen and I will both monitor Facebook as well, because I feel confident we may have some questions coming from the watchers.
Great.
But one of the things that when Karen and I were talking about, well, what are we going to ask? And the next thing we knew, we had like 2 hours worth of questions put together. But really is how did you get started? I mean, it's not like you woke up one day and said, this is my world. Did you have some other pathway in?
Well, shooting was something that was traditionally passed down in my family. My grandfather was a houndsman. He had like 50 or 60 hounds, and that was literally right here in LA.
Wow.
For those of you who may not know, I live in Los Angeles, California. And so he had about 50, 60 hounds, and he taught my dad, and my mom and dad taught me, and it was just something that we did as a family. And getting ready for the annual dove hunt in Yuma, Arizona, which was every September 1st, I was out at the range shooting, and somebody said, hey, you know, you're pretty good. Why don't you try the club shoot? And that's ultimately what started it. I just kept shooting one match and then the next, and just progressively got better and better. And before I knew it, I was invited to the Olympic Training Center, and they taught me the international style, and the rest is history. Now I look back, 6 Olympics later, and I'm still going for Olympics. I mean, I hope to go to the LA Olympics here in 2028. I mean, that would be amazing to have the hometown crowd, but it's just really been an amazing journey, and just something that really just mushroomed from a love of doing something with my family.
So I'm going to take that a step back. So when, you know, it was a family tradition or family component, but what age were you the first time you actually held a shotgun, learned how to shoot the shotgun, and actually were successful at it?
You know, I really don't know like the age that I was the very first time, because I mean, I've been around guns and shooting my whole entire life. As far back as I can remember, I was probably about 6 or 7 years of age, and I was dove hunting in Yuma, Arizona. And I remember I'd put the gun under my arm, so my dad would take the recoil and he'd help me hold it. And I remember shooting some birds that way. And then I progressed to where I was shooting them on my own. And yeah, it's just been many, many years ago. I truly just don't even know.
Right.
Just grew up with it. Literally, I always say I grew up with my fishing pole in one hand and my shotgun in the other, quite truthfully. And yeah, I'm quite proud of that. And I'm hopeful to actually do the same with my son.
That's awesome. So for the ladies that are watching, or even the gentlemen as well, that didn't have that family influence and have the opportunity to have it passed down from generation to generation, how would they get started in something like this? I mean, is there a standard answer to that, or?
Well, I think it's different for everybody. I mean, obviously for me, I had family, I had very close relatives and friends that were all very avid in the outdoors, that taught me tricks, little tidbits here and there. I think the best advice I can give is the first step is to go out to the shooting range. Find a local gun range, find maybe a local class or something that you're comfortable with, and just make the first initial step of showing up. And then from there, you will find that in the shooting world, everyone is so friendly, so helpful. They want to pass on that knowledge. They want to help people, and you will have no shortage of people trying to tell you how to do it. So how to hit that target, how to shoot, what's the best gun. I mean, there's a huge debate that it seems never ending on those topics. So I say the best advice is just to show up at the local gun range and and then go from there and really do whatever you're comfortable with. Some people, the first time it may be, going and shooting. Some people may be taking a class. I mean, it's really up to the individual and where they're at in their life.
Yep. So Kim,
ahead,
can
Karen.
you explain to us? So we had ladies that want to talk about trap and skeet. And so can you kind of explain the difference, and then how would they go get involved with that? What do they need? What equipment do they need?
Well, this is where I wish I had like a diagram that I could draw it all out. But the reality is that you have trap shooting, which you have a single trap, which is, when we say trap, that's the machine that actually throws the target. And it usually throws the target away from you in about 30 to 45 miles an hour, somewhere in there. It depends on altitude and where you're at. I won't get really technical, but basically you have 5 stations. And you shoot from varying distances, from 16 yards being the easiest all the way back to 27 yards. And that one machine oscillates back and forth, and you don't know which way the target's going to go, but the target's always going to go away from you in some form of an angle. It's going to vary depending upon that machine and the way it's oscillating. And then you move over to skeet, and skeet's a little more tricky. You have 2 houses. I got to get lined up here with the camera. You have a high house and a low house. And basically the targets cross in front of you. And you basically have 7 stations set in a half semicircle, with an 8th station being in the middle. And you shoot singles and doubles depending upon which station you're on. So the targets, the real difference between skeet and trap is just the presentation of the targets. One, trap, you have the targets going away from you. And in skeet, you have them more angled and crossing in front of you. So that's really the main difference between the two.
Would you start with, and I'm making an assumption, trap first, since it's a single target going away as you're learning the process, or is it really personal preference?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of debate on that. I mean, a lot of people will say, let's start off in trap. And it's really great because you have a lot more control. There's not a lot of movement, but the targets are always going away from you. The only challenge is that the machine is constantly oscillating. So the one thing I would recommend if you're going to start in trap is start and ask the club that you're shooting at to put a pin in the machine to prevent the machine from moving, so that you can practice that straight away, and then you move and create the angle as you progress or get better at shooting. That's something that they can do very easily. A lot of people don't know about that when they're learning. The next thing is that some people will say skeet is better because you learn about angles and leading. It's kind of like the old adage when you're playing football and you have to be the quarterback and pass the ball. You have to kind of aim ahead of the guy running to catch it, because it takes time for that football to travel and meet that catcher. It's the same thing in shooting. You have to try to lead the target in skeet and be ahead of it so that your shot will intersect the target and hopefully break it. So learning that in skeet is a little bit more of a challenge, but you have the ability, because the targets are stationary, to be able to practice certain targets and certain angles and then develop that and have a better understanding of it. So it's really up to the individual what they want to do, what they foresee in their future, who's teaching them, what they have as far as guns go, because that's really going to, I think, direct which way you go and which event you're going to go to. You don't see a lot of people crossing back and forth into the different events. Most people will either pick one or the other.
So what's the difference in the shotgun you need for each of those disciplines?
So, well, in skeet, just to give you an idea, in competition, you'd shoot 4 different gauges. You have 12, 20, 28, and 410, 12 being the largest, 410 being the smallest gauge, which the smaller the gauge, the more challenging it is because you have less shot actually traveling to hit that target. But at the same time, you have a lot more different types of disciplines going on. In trap, you're shooting only 12 gauge, and you have the difference is in that sport is the distance. So you'd shoot 16 yard, 17, 18, 19. You could shoot all these different yardages depending on your ability. And so that's something to kind of keep in mind. However, the big difference between the two is the type of ammunition that you're going to use, which is in trap, you'll usually shoot 7.5s, especially at the farther distances at 27-yard line. And in skeet, normally you'll shoot number 9s in types of ammunition. And that also, one thing to mention too is the chokes. In skeet, you'll be shooting like a skeet or a cylinder choke. And in trap, you'll be shooting anywhere from a light mod to a full, depending upon the yardage that you're shooting. And I think that's one thing people kind of don't realize is or understand what a choke is. And when I'm talking about chokes, I should say, because I don't know about, the level of our shooters that are in this room and on this conversation with me, but chokes basically restrict or constrict your pattern and make your pattern basically open up at various distances. So if you're shooting, say, 27-yard line in trap, which is the farthest distance you can get, you're going to have a much tighter choke, like a full. If you're shooting a 16-yard line, you may have a light mod or a mod, depending upon how fast you're shooting the target. Some people even open it up more depending on their quickness. So it really has to do with the distance at which you're shooting the target as to what choke you're going to use. And that's something you really see the experts do in sporting clays as they walk around and change their chokes depending on the presentation of the target and before them. And that's all based on the distance at which they're having to shoot the target.
So I have to ask now, I'm sorry, Krista. So what is your international shooting like? What is that compared, like, can you explain that too?
Yeah, no, anything with the word international in front of it, like international skeet, international trap, international double trap, anything with the word international really refers to the difficulty of it. So everything about it is basically on steroids. The targets are faster, the targets are harder, you're handicapped on the amount of shots. So to give you an example, an American skeet target will go about 40 miles an hour or so. 40 or so, ours is going about 60. It's about 20% faster. You have an extra ring of clay, so it's harder for them to break. It's also a lower profile target compared to a standard American skeet or ATA target. And then you add the difficulty of an international skeet. We shoot a lot more doubles. We have no easy incomers. We start with the gun at our hip. So when we call pull, the bird can come out the second we call pull, or there's a random delay and we don't know when the bird is going to come out. We can't leave the gun or try to mount the gun to our shoulder until the bird is physically in the air. So everything about the international games, even if I say international bunker, which is the form of trap shooting that you see in the Olympics, everything about that is more challenging, more difficult. And it's like trap on steroids or skeet on steroids. It's the most difficult.
So it really is physical training, but it's also mental training, right? So you've got to really be on your game. It's not as simple as having just a skill and being a really good shooter. You're mentally having to process the next whatever.
Well, you're having to make very quick decisions as the target is in the air. Basically, you're trying to take into considerations and try to prepare yourself before you call for the target for putting in the right lenses and trying to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make yourself as successful as possible as hitting that target. But at the same time, you can't foresee everything. It's kind of like all the little subtle nuances, the gust of wind or that cloud. There are some things that you just have no control over, but you still have to make that shot. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is make ourselves a machine and do it 1,000 times, nothing different, and no matter what is thrown in front of us.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I just think about my husband throwing clays for me, and I'm pretty sure he was nowhere near 60 miles an hour or even 40 miles an hour. And I'm still like...
Yeah, and that actually can go up in speed depending on altitude. As the air is thinner and they're trying to reach a certain peg. I mean, it's really, it's just a rough estimate. I mean, sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower, it just depends on various things. But we are handicapped on the amount of shot. So where most people shoot 1 ounce and 1/8, we're only shooting 7/8 of an ounce.
So it's lighter.
Considerably lighter. It's equivalent to a 28 gauge, a high base 28 gauge shell in a 12 gauge hull. So we're handicapped not only by speed and all these other things, harder target, but we're more than anything handicapped on the amount of shot that we have flying out to hit the target. So we have to be very precise.
Yeah.
So we have a question from one of our followers, Peggy Perkins Markey. I think that's how I say that. She wants to know, are there any recommendations for the way to size a shotgun length for a shooter?
I am kind of old school in that. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. You'll hear a lot of different people do different things. There's two things that you want to look at. One is the length of pull, and most people will measure, and I got to make sure I have the camera here, the length of pull from, hang on, I got to get to where I'm not very good at technology, from putting the butt pad on the end of the gun, or the butt pad here, with the gun going straight up, and measuring the distance from here to your fingertip to the first knuckle on the trigger.
Okay.
That would be the length of pull measurement, usually for most people. If you can't get your finger in on that trigger to the first knuckle, then you know it's either too long, or if you're all the way down to here, then you know it's too short, vice versa. The other thing to look at is the height of the comb. And that's one thing that most women really struggle with, is getting that fit right for the height of the comb. Is if you don't, you'll have a nice cherry on your cheek, and we don't want that. So
I've never done that.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have, but one of the cool tricks is you have two beads. You want to make sure, if you're a beginner, you get two beads put on your gun, a middle bead and an end bead, and you want to stack your beads. Gosh, I got to learn these cameras here. Backwards. You want to stack your beads like a figure 8 on your gun. You don't want them to be split like this or like this or like that. You want them to be stacked, one right on top of the other. And then the way to measure that is, I always just use 2 quarters and put it right behind the middle bead, blocking it, and I should be able to see half of the end bead with the gun mounted, unloaded. So that's a great way to check if a gun is fitting you height-wise, and just a really neat little trick that I learned from an old timer back in the day.
Wow. We have another question.
Okay.
It says, my 15-year-old son was supposed to start shooting with his first track team this year. How can we help him practice since the team has been postponed?
Well, I mean, some of the best ways, I'm not sure exactly, you're saying trap, right? I think that's what that said.
He said trap, yes.
Yeah, there's different things that you can do for reaction. So they have like light bars set up that you can work with an empty gun at home to track and try to do reaction type stuff. You can also practice gun mounts and things, but also, and I hate to say this, playing video games, hand-eye coordination, those types of things also build great foundations for shooting, being able to look at the screen and actually do it. But at the end of the day, the best advice is just to get out on the range. And when you do get the chance to go out to a trap field or a trap range, actually drill targets, because shooting around really doesn't do a whole lot for you. Actually, the repetition of shooting 10 in a row or 5 in a row is really going to be where it's at, and really help you to advance yourself to be really, really good quickly. That'll really help your son the most. And if you really notice that your son's struggling with a certain target, whether it be like a hard right or maybe even a straightaway, you'd be surprised how many people miss that straightaway. You can actually have the gun club pin the machine or put a pin in, and they can set that machine, and you have your son practice like 10 of those in a row or 5 of those, and then have him pull the machine and practice it oscillating back and forth, so that he can learn and get that visual picture of what that lead is and what it should be. But other than that, I mean, the best advice is just to try to get out to the shooting range. I mean, I think we're all feeling it right now in the COVID-19 era, especially here in LA. We're in extreme lockdown. We can't get out to the shooting ranges, but at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot that you can do. There's some mental things, but at the end of the day, it's really about being out on the range and actually getting that experience and that, time putting that lead down range.
So Kim, go ahead.
Sorry, how much time do you spend practicing, just out of curiosity?
Well, this is probably the longest I have been off in probably 15 or 20 years. Really, I shoot almost every single day. When I'm in full training, I'm averaging at least a 6 or 7 hour day. I mean, I start at like 8 or 9 and I don't get done till like 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
Wow.
But we're putting on average about 500 to 1,000 rounds a day in full training. So, I mean, that just gives you an idea. We're doing a lot of repetition.
That's
a lot
amazing. That's
Right.
amazing.
And we try to make it like walking. When you walk down the street, you don't think right, left, right, left, right, left. You just do it. And it's the
Right.
same way for shooting for us. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do, is to make it like walking. You know, in the very beginning, you have to think about my foot stance, my hold point, my leads, and all that. And all that plays into being successful at hitting the target. But as you shoot more and more, that becomes a lot easier.
So I have a question. What about visual challenges? So as people age, which you're still young, so you haven't gotten there yet, but they start using the whole reader concept. And so their eyes and their focal points change. And then some people like me wear other vision correction on top of reading glasses, whether it be monovision contacts, something like that. Is there advice you can give that you've seen other people use in the field to be successful shooting when you have such a different thing that you're looking at all the time?
Well, I will say that I have teammates on my team that have horrible vision. So, I mean, there's hope for everybody out there. The best advice I could give is to shoot with contact lenses. They tend to have a lot less distortion and a lot less issues. One of the things that we see a lot is people will put on shooting glasses and they're ground for if they're walking straight ahead, you know, and the problem that we see is that when they mount their gun or do different things, that now they're looking through the top part of the glass or the lens or the bottom part, and that causes them to look through the grind of the lens. So you start seeing or having warpage of the photo or the picture that they're seeing. So they'll say, I was right on that. And you're like, no, you were like feet behind it. But at the end of the day, that's a quick and easy fix. You know, have your gun mounted, look at where you're looking through the lens, take your glasses off, take them to an optometrist and tell them you want them ground dead center for right here, because this is where I'm mounting and looking through the lens when I'm mounting the gun. And there's just little things like that. But if you don't want to deal with all that, just wear contact lenses. That pretty much corrects all.
So we've really been taking your time today. We're almost at 30 minutes, and we really appreciate you being here.
So
But
fast.
I know I have to
That's
ask
it.
this.
We're
though.
done. No, I'm just kidding.
I
You
have
guys
to
have
ask
more.
this.
Throw them at me.
I have to ask you. So the first Olympics, how old were you?
I was 16 when I went to my first Olympics, and it was in Atlanta in 1996. And I don't think I really realized what it was I'd done until I got home and I went back to high school, and how life-changing it really was. And it was amazing. I look back now, 6 Olympics later, and each one is so unique and so special. And yeah, I can't wait. I hope that we get to have the 2021 Olympics. It'll be amazing, and it'll be incredible. We'll see what happens.
I am familiar with the Atlanta Olympics. I am from Atlanta. As a matter of fact, my family hosted parents of athletes throughout the Olympic period. My parents had, I can't remember his name, but he's a shooter from the U.S., long-range shooter. His parents stayed at their house. So, but you're 16. You're at the Olympics. Your parents aren't with you. You're with your teammates, but like, what does that feel like? Are you overwhelmed? I think I would be freaked out.
Awesome. What are you talking about?
Party!
No. I mean, it wasn't like that. I mean, I was definitely the youngest. I was the youngest ever for shooting for the United States. So yeah, I mean, it was quite different. But at the same time, it was incredible. I mean, in those days, we could pick any event to go watch. It was super safe. You could go and have McDonald's, anything you wanted. I mean, it was amazing.
Now, Olympic athletes do not eat McDonald's, right? I've got some vision that
you
you've
keep
got
telling
like
yourself
organic.
that, but I'm going to tell you that McDonald's is very popular and has been for years. But you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just an incredible experience. I mean, the Olympics really take on a life of their own, and that's what you find. No matter what Olympics you've been to, each one is so unique and so special, and really has a life of its own at each country that they've been held. And you really find that whether you're the athlete or you're the spectator, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So Kim, you are the first female ever to have 6 Olympic medals, right? So do I have that right? Correct?
I'm the only athlete, one of 2 athletes actually in the world. I'm the only one in the United States to have 6 for 6. So 6 Olympics and 6 medals.
Wow.
I'm the only one in the United States in any event, and only one of 2 in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, no pressure.
And that's
right?
athlete. That's not male or female. That's just athlete,
That's
correct?
athlete. It's male or female.
Oh my gosh.
Matter. So,
wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I have a few under my belt, a few Olympics, a little bit of experience on 5. I think it's 5 different continents I've been able to compete on. So, pretty amazing.
So as we have a lot of women that are leery about going to the range for the first time by themselves or taking their kids to the range for the first time, anytime have you experienced, and how did you handle it? Any situations where you were uncomfortable at a range, or do you remember? Because I imagine you a lot of times were the only girl practicing. Like you might have been the only girl there.
A lot of times I'm the only person on the range, man or woman.
So you just invite yourself.
I think
it.
That's one thing that you really don't have in the shooting world is this men or women type thing. I mean, everyone is so welcoming. And that's one of the few sports that men and women can truly compete on an equal playing field. We truly can compete equally, and we're hopeful in maybe the next couple Olympics or in upcoming games that may happen. I mean, it used to be the way back in the day.
Right.
So that's one of the most fantastic things about the sport. It doesn't matter your size or your stature, man, woman, everyone's equal. And I never really had that feeling. I don't know if it was just me or the way I was raised, but I've always just found the ranges to be so welcoming and people so nice. And here, let me show you, or here, I have this, try this. And you really find it's a very family-oriented sport. Lots of families and mothers with sons and daughters out there. I mean, it's the whole array. And
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that answer, because that's what we tell them too, is that, but now you're a little more official than us. And so it's really awesome. But we've got to be mindful of your time. I know we've gone over and I know coronavirus has you shelter in home, and y'all, she's a mother as well, right? So
Yes.
Her son turns 7 next month, and I think. And
yeah, my son's going to be 7. Carter is his name. And we are having to go through all the craziness that coronavirus is bringing here. I'm in Los Angeles, so I am in the thick of it. And we are shelter in place. We can't leave our house for anything other than the pharmacy or the doctor or the grocery store. And let me just say, it's very difficult to get toilet paper, paper towels. I cannot find hand soap like Dawn anywhere.
I'll ship you some.
I would love that, but yeah, we're in extreme times here in LA. It's pretty crazy. They've canceled my son's school for the year, so I'm having to homeschool. My son is dyslexic, so teaching a dyslexic child on the computer, as we all know, is a challenge to begin with. And I mean, there's just a lot of really crazy things. We need to pray for everyone and really, stick it out together. I mean, we're all in this together.
Yeah. So we're going to end, but I have to show you this comment. I'll let Krista read it, but thank you so much for joining us today. But I have to show you this comment because it's going to warm your heart.
It says, watching Kim on TV in the Atlanta Olympics was the first time I saw adult women shooting guns. My dad had been teaching me to shoot a rifle, but I had never seen any women at the shooting club. When I saw Kim and all of the other women, that was the first time I realized I could shoot in matches too.
Yeah.
Now we have a whole women's league at our sportsman's club.
That's so awesome. It's amazing. I mean, when I started shooting and I look back at it, they didn't have trophies for the sub-juniors or even the juniors, and especially for women. And when you go back and you look at the World Shooting Complex in Texas, and you look at the men's, I think it's the sub-junior or junior trophy for men, my name is on it all the way around because they didn't have a women's trophy. And, you know, the very next year they had a women's trophy after I won it all. So it's amazing to see, you know, where we've come from and to see, you know, clothing lines now dedicated to women and all these guns like Beretta coming out with women guns. I mean, it's really amazing and super exciting, and really it's a fantastic sport. It's great to do with families. It's not something where you can just drop your kid off. You actually have to be part of it. And that's something that I love most. And I think that everyone can do it. And hopefully I'll see you guys all out there.
Yes. Okay, Kim, one last comment in closing. Is there one piece of advice or something that a coach or a mentor said to you that's resonated with you throughout your career?
Well, you know, I think back on a lot of things. I mean, I've had a lot of really amazing coaches over the years. My father is my coach, even currently to this day. I say, you know, I've had people tell me, you know, don't miss. And, you know, someday you're going to have to shoot well in the rain. That's like one of my dad's favorite lines as it's pouring down rain. But, you know, one of the things that really resonates me is one of the first times I went to the Olympic Training Center. I was about, I want to say 13 or 14 years old. I had just won the world championships for open women. And the Olympic coach had made an exception for me. And I showed up, and I was expecting that time the Olympic coach should take us to the shooting range. But instead, he actually took us to a classroom. And he sat us down and said, Kim, I want you to write down all the things you can't do. And this was to the whole class. And in those days, I was really shy. I was like, you know, man, you know, I was kind of thinking about all the things, you know, I you know, you can't do. And he comes up to me and goes, Kim, how come you're not writing? And I look at him and told him, you know, I believe that there's nothing I can't do. And he said, class, stop writing. And about that time, I was looking for the nearest exit. And he goes, Kim, repeat what you said. And I said, you know, I believe there's nothing I can't do as long as I put my mind to it or work hard. And he said, that's what makes Olympic champions, knowing that when you step out on that line, that you can hit every single target, that you have no fear, no doubt, and, you know, you just go for it, put it all out there. And that's something that's really stuck with me, is that you have to be willing to take that first step. You have to be willing to make that goal and put yourself out there and, you know, really try. Otherwise, you'll never know. And so, yeah, that's, you know, something that I think truly resonates with me as being an Olympian and in my career.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That will be a benefit to all of us.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This has been amazing.
Thank you. And remember, everyone watching, please like, comment, and share to be eligible to win. And I can't see my vest, but
Beretta vest.
Beretta vest. You can't really see it, but we're wearing it. Thank you again, Kim.
Thanks for having me.
Kim, thanks so much. We're so happy that Beretta was able to make this connection for us, and Beretta's donating the prize package. In addition to the vest, I think they're giving some hearing protection and a range bag as well. So it's like a big swag bag from Beretta. And so we're just excited. The fans are all saying thank you very much. We might have a question. We'll email you or two if you don't mind answering, if they have one for us later.
Yeah, perfect. I'm here to help, and maybe we can do this again later on in the next couple weeks or in a month or so. I'm all for it.
Okay. Yeah, I've been so nervous. I've been like fan geeking all day, and I don't get that way over too many people. Brenda Valentine's one of them, and Kim Rhode. These are women that we really need to hold in high esteem. You know, everything that you've done and how you represent yourself so professionally, how you, not only women, but really the sport, how you carry yourself in all the public engagements that I've had the privilege of watching you participate in. It's just, it's really inspiring to see, and it makes a difference to all of us. And so thank you very much for all the service that you do in being such a great ambassador for our sport, in addition to just this, you know, 6-time Olympian.
Well, it's an amazing journey for me. I feel very honored and blessed to be in the position that I am. And I feel very humbled every day to hear those stories like what you guys were showing me, that one young girl. As I just look at myself as like everyone else, but it's been so fantastic. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and hopefully we have many, many more. We'll see.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Great.
thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Be
Bye,
safe.
everyone. Be safe. Stay home.
Bye.
Bye.
Wash your hands.